good afternoon. I guess it's almost afternoon. It's right in the middle of the day, so good day. We are going to go over the problems from the evens to make sure we're on the right page, and then hopefully after you watch this, you can take your quiz. The quiz is going to be hand graded. It's not multiple choice. So just FYI, I'll have to text you or email you with your feedback, okay, with what grade you got. All right, so let's do number 2. Notice that we're asking for x to y. So remember, it's terminal minus initial. So we want to do terminal minus initial and then terminal minus initial. If we had asked for y to z, that would be different. Y would be your initial and x would be your terminal. Okay, so since x is your initial and y is your terminal, we do 23 minus 14 and then negative 14 minus a negative 23. Okay, so now we can simplify that. So 23 minus 14 is 9, and then sorry, I'm just double checking myself. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't want to make any careless mistakes. And then we're going to do, change that to a double negative, and so that will also become 9. Okay, so that's our component form, That means we would go over to the right 9 and up 9, because they're both positive, so our vector would look something like that. Okay? Now to find the magnitude, we're going to do 9 squared plus 9 squared. So that's 81 plus 81. And then that gives us 162. So you could leave it that way, or you could break it down, which is 9 root 2. Or you can do the square root of 162, which will give me 12.7. Any of those 3 answers I would accept at this point. Okay? So that's number 2. Number 4 says, would the component form yx be the same as xy? So you guys, let's just say, if I switch the order like I was talking about a moment ago, would it be the same? So this is xy. So what if I were to do, if you aren't sure, just try it, okay? So what if I were to do yx? All right, so it would be, terminal would now be the x first and then initial. Well, does that give us the same thing as what we had here? It's actually the opposite. Do y'all see that? So it would be negative 9, 9. So if we do xy and then yx, it's going to look the same, but it's going to be going in the opposite direction. So negative 9, the vector is going to look like that. So it looks similar. It's going to have the same magnitude as the first one, but it's going to be going in the different direction. So would the component form be the same? The answer would be no. They would be opposites. Okay? Because they would be going in different directions. Okay, so number 6, make sure that you're really careful. These can be really easy, but you got to read it carefully. So do you see this one? The z comes first and the y comes second, okay? So don't just immediately put this one here and this one here. You have to really read it and be careful there. So you're going to put it like it is. Now we can distribute. So it'll be negative 20, negative 12, plus, because we're going to distribute the negative with it, so it'll change it to a positive, negative 8, and then we can add those together. So that'll be negative 16 and negative 20. Okay, that should be your final answer there. All right, with 8 and 10, the big thing is these numbers get huge, but we need to draw them in the appropriate quadrant. So with number 8, we have a negative 25 and then a 60. So x is negative and the y is positive. That means it'll be in quadrant 2. So our angle should be somewhere between 90 and 180 degrees. So keep that in mind in just a second. So the first thing we're going to do is Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to do 25 squared, remember you don't really even have to put the negative, and 60 squared. So it's going to be a really big number. I don't know it off the top of my head. Let's type it in. So it's going to be 4,225. Now, the first thing I would do is see if it's a perfect square, because in this case, it actually is. So there's our magnitude. All right. Now to find the direction, we're going to do sine. Sine of theta prime is opposite over hypotenuse, and now let's type that in. Second sine, and then 60 divided by 65. And that gives us 67.4 degrees. All right, so what did I just say a minute ago? I said that our angle should be between 90 and 180. Is this angle between 90 and 180? And the answer is no, this one is acute. And that's because all of the angles we should always get are going to be acute, or less than 90. So what we need to do is we need to use these rules over here. Well, this is in quadrant 2, so we're going to take our angle theta and we're going to do 180 minus what we just found. Okay, so 180 minus 67.4 should give us 112.6 degrees. Now that is your final answer, and doesn't that make a lot more sense? It's between 90 and 180 degrees. Okay. All right, let's look at number 10. Number 10 should be in quadrant 4 because 42 is positive, 18 is negative. So your x is positive, your y is negative. Let's change colors here so it stands out a little bit. All right, so let's do Pythagorean theorem with 42 and 18. It's going to be a big number again. I'm going to make them a lot smaller on the quiz. And it gives us 2,088. And you can leave it like that. Let's test and see if it's a perfect square. It's not. So you could leave it like that, or 45.7 if you want. Okay? And so now we're going to do sine of theta. So theta prime, is going to be negative 18 over 45.7. And theta prime, you get a negative, but remember, just ignore it. So you should get 23.2 degrees, okay? So now remember, again, this angle is all the way in quadrant 4. So we want to do, to get our theta, we're going to do 360 minus what we just got, and that should give us our final answer. So 360 minus 23.2 is approximately 336.8 degrees. And doesn't that make a lot more sense because it's in quadrant 4 than 23.2? Okay? And then number 12, just be careful. I still see some of us putting commas and everything. We want i's and j's, so we just want negative 5i minus 7j, and that's it. Okay? Nothing further than that. All right, let's go to number 14. Okay, so 14, remember, your answer is going to look like this. V hat equals, you're going to have your original numbers, but you're going to have a square root on the bottom. Well, maybe not. On the previous one, we didn't have to have a square root because it was a perfect square. So let's first find the magnitude of this vector. So we're going to do 2 squared plus 4 squared. You can put negative 4 if you want, but you don't have to. So that'll be, what, 4 plus 16, which is the square root of 20. And then the square root of 20 can break down, so we want to break it down to make it more accurate. So 4 times 5, and so that'll give me 2 root 5. Okay, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. Because I am scaling back, oops, I put 2 root 5. I'm scaling the original vector back, okay? So if it means I go over, let's draw it. I'm going to do it up here. So if I were to draw this vector, it means I'm going to the right 2 and then down 4. Like this, okay? So the 2, 4, negative 4. So our vector is the green, okay? So this is our vector right here. So does it have a magnitude of 1? No, we just found out that it actually has a magnitude, of 2 root 5. But I don't want it to have a magnitude of 2 root 5. So I have to divide it by itself because then that would have 1. So now it'll be like that. but I have to do it to all of them as well. So I have to divide this one and this one by 2 root 5. And then we just simplify. So if you notice, this can simplify and so can this. So our final answer should be 1 over root 5, comma, negative 2 over root 5. So I just left the radical in the denominator and then I simplified the fractions. Okay? All right, we're getting there. We're almost done. For 16, it says an object is pushed up a ramp 17 miles per hour. So I need to put a 17 here at an angle of 132 degrees. So you see how I try to draw this accurately where it's going to the left? So when I find the horizontal and vertical components, one of these is going to be negative. So when I drop my horizontal and my vertical, which one is actually going to be negative from this starting point right here? The x, right? So I can do sine SOHCAHTOA, but first we do not want to use the 132 because it's not it's not inside the triangle. So I'm going to do 180 minus 132, which will give me 48. Okay? So now I'm going to do sine. Well, first let me do cosine, sorry. All right, so cosine 48 equals x over 17, and then sine of 48 equals y over 17. And then we're just going to multiply and divide. So not multiply and divide, just multiply, excuse me. So 17 cosine 48 gives me, sorry, I don't have a lot of room. X equals 11.4. Now here's the one trick to this. Here's your final answer. But you don't want to tell 11.4 because that would mean this direction, okay? So because it's going to the left, you need to put a negative. It will not have that. So that's a little bit of a trick to this problem. And then we're going to go type the same thing. 17 times. And so you get 12.6. And you do not have to change the sign there because it's going up, so it's still going to be positive. Okay? All right, so that's your answer there. You have your x component here, and you have your y component there. All right, and then the last question, two forces with magnitudes 45 and 60 are applied to an object. So I went ahead and drew it, but can I leave it like this? The answer is no, I cannot leave it like that. I need to slide one of them, right? So I'm going to slide the 62 this way. So I'm going to have 45 and 62. And now I can draw my resultant in blue. And the resultant is 100 pounds. And it's asking us to find the measure of the angle between the resultant, so that's the 100, and the 45. So that's this angle right here. So my question to you is, can I do SOHCAHTOA or do I need to do law of cosine? And the answer is, because it's not a right triangle, we have to do law of cosine. Okay? So if you remember, this is how the formula goes. Cosine theta equals, so the numbers on either side first, minus the one across from it, all over 2 times the first two numbers. Okay? So 45 squared divide by, you get 0.909, and then we do second cosine, or the inverse cosine of that number, and then we get our answer. So second cosine, second negative, and we get approximately 24.6 degrees. Okay, so there's your answer. All right, I have officially gone over every problem. If you need to go back and look at the videos again, you certainly can between yesterday and today. That should help you before you take your little quiz. Again, I'm going to hand grade the quiz. It's just easier than trying to make it all multiple choice. So do your best, and I'll give you your feedback when you submit that tomorrow. All right, have a great day.